once again, thanks, Jose, for kind of doing the back end work for us. He's the one is the recording will go to. So if you do miss something, you miss a week or something, it'll be in the show notes later on in the week. With that, let me go to the first one. I guess I wanted to ask for help. And I was going to bring in Jose at this point, but Jose is sort of like the back-end TWIML leader that helps put the study groups together. But he did recommend, just in case I may miss some reason, we have a co-host that might pick up a Slack or be a little bit more involved so that just in case I miss one of the sessions. And again, it's supposedly 8 weeks because we have 8 video lessons. I do plan to make every single lesson, but just in case, as Jose was suggesting, perhaps somebody else could be there just as a backup. And probably at the end, as you'll see me do the kind of overview, I guess, of the lesson, maybe we can have a little bit different presenters or discussions so that it's not just one way all the time. And I don't mind going through it. Yes, it does help me, but I kind of want to make it available for everyone to participate because it's no use just listening to me and listening to another lecturer. You have to sort of be involved, and that's the way I think you gain faster improvements in your learning. And then, of course, I'm going to be tracking time. If someone could also remind us, we might be going too long on a discussion question or perhaps too long on a topic. Just somebody remind me or do something that we need to stay on time because we only really have 2 hours. So I want to kind of limit that time. If you have longer discussions, please put them in the Slack channel and have everyone participate and discuss it that way. That way we kind of keep the kind of the study group time to about 2 hours. And something that was mentioned in the Slack channel, but it doesn't look like that'll be a big problem here, is that dividing it in groups. But since we have such a small number today at this initial meeting, I think we can pause the groups for a little bit. The whole idea with groups is if we had more than 20 people, I might not be able to kind of get through everybody and have everyone participate in different questions or discussions. But I think with this small number, I think we can all do fine.
And Andy, just to let you know real briefly, I only see 4 people on video, but there are 21 or 22 people, participants on the today.
Oh, okay. Well, then yes, I only see 6 too, but maybe that's that's my Zoom piece as well. So if we do have to break into groups, we'll see how we can manage that. But again, being that this is the initial one, let's see how this one goes and see where we can make adjustments or improvements. So I did send out an agenda, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at that agenda, but let me just pause it to you here. So I don't know if you like this way, being a long-term, what's called Toastmaster. There's a Toastmaster organization. They present meetings. They always recommend having agendas. So when they have this agenda, you think this is a nice agenda. Basically, I just threw an agenda with my own template. I make tons of these all the time. So you can see I have presentation 1, 2, and 3. That just means perhaps we have a more probably experienced person or somebody who went through the course more than once, and they have a little bit insight to explain a particular area within the video. I kind of want to keep it to the video. I don't want to go off topic and say, oh, in video 3, we talk about this. And let's just try to keep it to video 1 because there's lots of opportunity. But I think if we just keep it to one video lesson at a time, we make more use and efficient use of our time and our sort of progress as we go through all these videos. And then of course, there's like a tips and tricks session. If you have something, you'll see mine at first, and then maybe the group can like spout off, oh, I learned how to do this, or I learned how to do that kind of thing. That might help the group as a whole. And we'll put those tips, again, it'll be recorded, and we'll put those tips on the Slack channel as well. It'll be in the video recording, but I think it's nice just to have the kind of written parts, and you'll see my written part in just a minute. So, and then the next one is the trivia. I did mention that. That's just the questionnaires, and I'll just randomly pick somebody, and I'll just say, for question 4, so-and-so, can you tell us what the answer is? And it's sort of like, if you've ever heard Toastmasters, it's called table topics. It's 1 to 2 minutes. You just answer. If you don't know, you can just say you don't know. And we can have somebody who does know, who's very anxious to get into the study group. They can answer the question. And of course, at the very end, if you have questions or you're stuck somewhere, perhaps you're not getting answers on the forum or the Slack channel, you can mention it here. Not that we would know every answer that is put on, but I definitely think if we had a running list, and then if we can work through that list throughout the week, and then maybe get back to somebody who's stuck in something, or we can post it on the forums as well, trying to add more kind of views to that thread. And then how we can do better, right? How this session went, and then I'll just ask for general comments. I do want to just mention that we'll have that closing remarks, but please stay on. I just want to share a little bit of bonus material for you, and I'll close the video. And then if you're still on at 7:15-ish, I'll give you some bonus material that won't be included in the notes. It's not really important. It's just my experience going through Fast.ai 2020 that I've experienced. That would be helpful, I think, for other people to know. So that's sort of the agenda. So of course, if you see the next week presenters, if you have a particular topic, or perhaps I can have volunteer, it doesn't have to be the middle of the video. I just put that as a placeholder, but you can have your own little 5-minute talk about something you did or something you were impressed with in the video lecture. And that would make a nice segue for, breaking the meeting up, so that's not just me rambling on, or one person kind of taking over the study time. So we're at 5:41, so we're just rolling away here. Can I move here? So let me give you the overview of lesson 1, how I do it. I first watch the video all the way through, and then I go back, and then I do I kind of do a fast video walkthrough at first, but then I'll go through with the video and the book. So yes, I do actually have the physical book. And the reason why I think the physical book is better, and Jeremy explains this too, but I think writing actually in the book helps you kind of solidify where things are. For example, you'll see that like in code, I don't know if you can see that, but I'll write in the book like little things that maybe Jeremy said or something that would be useful, but I don't see it in the book material, or it may be mentioned somewhere else, and then he'll mention it somewhere in the video later on, and then I'll have to flip back and look for that. And you get, the most important thing to me is page numbers. So when I go like question number 33 is on page number 16. Well, if you're just doing the electronic one, it's very hard for you to find page 16. You would have to, find out where that is, or, control F everywhere. And you'll eventually find it. It's just a lot easier if you have page numbers by the actual questions to kind of help in your review. So let me show you how so I've done the first walkthrough. I kind of just listened to it, just getting everything going. Then the second one I walked through with the book, and then I'm kind of making my own notes as I go along. And this is what I wanted to kind of present to you. Does everyone see that? Or should I make that bigger?
Yep, it's visible on my screen. I have a pretty small laptop screen, and I can read it well.
Okay.
And I don't have the best eyesight either, so probably everyone else is going to be okay.
Looks fine.
So this is how I run after I did maybe the second pass through. Then I start making little notes on the side, just in a text file, just so I can have it really quickly. because eventually what I want to do is I don't want to watch the video again to find out what was he talking about this and what was it. I just want to kind of go to these cheat sheets, and I don't want to dig through the, find which page it was. I just kind of want to like, okay, where was he was saying about Frank Rosenblatt and stuff like that. And I don't want to have it with a lot of pictures because I know myself. I just start cutting and pasting a bunch of pictures. So I kind of want to keep it really simple, easy, and then just push that, out there. And so this is kind of what I go through when I complete the lesson. I should have a nice little cheat sheet, and then just, I can review this when I'm doing my review. So my recommendation is kind of go through the video like maybe twice, and then you have this little cheat sheet, and then see if you can do this, little walkthrough with the clean notebooks. You know what I mean by the clean one? The ones without the prose that just have the text. And then doing this plus this, the clean ones without the, explanation, I think it really helps you solidify what you're doing. So let me just run through this really quick. So, he introduces himself, he says, get the book. And what's interesting about the book here, or the physical book, is they actually have the wrong link that points you to the wrong. So I wrote O'Reilly and I said, hey, can you fix the link? Because that's not the link that is on this one. So everyone's seen the link before, and I'll just post that here. I wonder if it'll come up. So you've seen this, right? So in the video, that might not say clean. So the clean one, so these are the ones with the prose, with all the documentation that they talking about. And then the clean one, they have nothing, right? So the clean one, it's just all their, just the code, and that's it. So if you want to, you can kind of go back and pretend you're Jeremy and go through those lessons there. So that's the book. And it goes through a little history, talks about Warren McCullough and Walter Pitts, artificial neuron, shows that little picture. And then he come up with this Frank Rosenblatt, and he made a physical one. I don't know if you remember that little picture. And then he talks about these two, Martin Minsky and Seymour Papert, making the perceptrons. And then he goes, and then he moves to this interesting David Perkins. And when I first heard about Fast.ai, I think I took version 2. And I remember doing this, kind of just getting your feet wet and just, just get it going, so to speak. But I remember simply, I don't know if it's your experience, if for those of you who've taken the course, that you just sort of just shift enter. And then you just shift enter, shift enter, shift enter. And you're not really understanding, but you're playing the game. And I don't recommend that. I try to like change something, change some values, and then see what the error is, and then go back and really just don't do shift enter like I did. So I tend to do shift enter just to see everything working. And then I'll go back and I'll start changing some values, making sure I understand each part. So I think playing the whole game just needs to refine that. Maybe not just watch the game, but actually, get up to bat, get up to throw the ball. And that means, tinkering around with, what happens when I do this? What happens when I change this value? What happens if I don't put the value in? So, you keep messing around. So that's my only take on the playing it, without the fundamentals. Now, what's interesting is there's a kind of different approach, which is sort of how we all learn. You learn the foundations first. And if you want to do it that way, I heard that Andrew Ng has his course on Coursera, and that's more of a kind of a foundations. Here's the theory, here's the stuff, and so you can go that way. And in the bonus material, I'll put the link where you can find that. So basically, they're just saying get the big picture idea first before you start, diving through the theory part. And the theory does come. You start learning later on in the lessons. But as far as for this, they just want you to run it, right? So they come with this PyTorch versus TensorFlow, and then Fast.ai, this a layered API for deep learning. This is the link that the kind of paper that he was talking about, where kind of this idea came from. So highly recommend just to kind of peruse through it. You don't have to read it all, but the link is there. And then he says, go get a GPU deep learning server. So two they recommend was Google Colab and Paperspace Gradient. So I don't know if anyone has got these two yet. Anyone?
Hey, Andy, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hey, I was just curious with his involvement with the Kaggle program, why he didn't recommend Kaggle as one
I have wondered that too.
of the free services, because you get 42 free hours
Yeah.
a week.
Yeah. And it's maybe these are geared toward using some of the Fast.ai library. I don't know. But these are the two that seem to be on the, on the recommended ones.
Kaggle is owned by Google, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And Tensor, and he's using PyTorch, which is not Google. Let's start there. I don't know.
Yeah, that might be it.
Right.
I know he has a history with Kaggle, and it just surprised me.
Yeah. So I did try both of these out. I don't know if you tried both of these out.
I think I just want to add something.
Go ahead.
The reason why is actually Kaggle does provide the space, but Paperspace and Colab allow you to play with the notebooks. It's easier to move the notebooks to Colab, for example. If you go to the course website, there's a click on a link and you open the notebooks up in Colab.
Yeah.
And if you use Paperspace, there's actually a machine image where the notebooks are already there. So it's just easier to use Paperspace and Colab rather than copying over the notebooks from Kaggle, because I've tried using Kaggle. You can. There's no reason why. It's just that it's a lot of bother to have to copy over the notebooks, and there's a bunch of other stuff there, like the images that don't work and you have to move over. So it's a matter of convenience that when we took the live course, they deliberately worked with people from Paperspace, I think, and they kind of added some stuff there for Colab to make it easy to work with Colab. And that's the primary reason. But definitely you can use Kaggle if you wanted to. It's just a lot more work.
I use Google Compute platform, GCP.
Yeah, you can use that too.
Yeah.
That's the way he suggested, I think, during the previous iteration.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit hard to get set up at first.
Yeah.
But once
I think it's more of the setup rather than not being able. As long as you have a Jupyter notebook environment, you can. It's just a lot more trouble to have to copy over the notebooks. Plus, there's a bunch of images, I think, that come with the notebooks and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, in the GCP, you go through a process of when you first bring up your GCP instance, you connect to it through the SDK that you have to load. So there's a little bit of a setup there, and then you simply refresh the GitHub repo on your instance, and then you refresh the library, and then you just go. So, and I'll be glad to walk anyone through that. I think that's going to be probably next week. We'll have to figure out, you got to figure out something by next week, right?
Yeah.
I think a nice thing about Paperspace also, I don't know about the other ones, is that it gives you persistent storage. So you can download your own data sets and they'll still be there when you come back. I'm not sure. I think Kaggle used to not be able to do that. I'm not sure about the current status.
GCP, it's your VM. You do have a VM,
Yeah,
but it's only so big.
Is.
Yeah, it's only so big.
Yeah.
Definitely in Colab, you have to copy back your stuff into something like Google Drive before the session ends. Yeah, that's the bother.
Yeah, well, Paperspace is kind of easy because you just have a drive that stays there and is going to be automatically.
Yeah, I'm debating.
I went with Paperspace. I tried Google Colab, but just continuing to have to save the results and everything. And it's not really Jupyter. It's sort of like their own version. So I just went with Paperspace, and I did find some little bugs in there, but nothing that I wanted to mention is that I think if you go to the forums, the forums are more geared toward Colab and Paperspace versus the other ones. So you do have the other ones, but they're just a little bit more responsive, especially if you ask from the Paperspace area. There's usually people kind of, I guess, trolling the forums for Paperspace and issues with that. So let me just continue here. So then, he talks about the forums, and hopefully everyone has got to the forums. There's a little jumping back and forth with the different versions. So there's like 2018, 2019, now 2020. So I guess the difference is the years and the versions that people are working on, because it looks like some people are still doing version 2 and version 3. So people are kind of in the midst of that, and they're not sure whether or not to just jump to version 4. So you'll see that in the forums a lot. I'm not sure if you guys have the same experience as I do, that when I post in the forums, the feedback isn't as quick as I would like it to be. I don't know, maybe I'm asking wrong questions or something like that, but is that your experience with the forums?
Generally, yes. Don't expect a response in a day even,
Yeah.
or at all. If it's a hard question, some people, it's just a hard question. People don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, my experience has been about 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some getting an answer or not.
So
It has been helpful at times.
Yeah. So I have a solution for that. You probably may already know that, but let me just continue. So they say use the clean version, and that was the one I was telling you about. Maybe at least in the book, it doesn't say clean, I don't think. It says something else. And then he says, ask yourself what's going on with that clean version, and then, of course, do the questionnaire. We'll jump to some of the questionnaire questions there later, but he goes through sort of the history and about Arthur Samuel and coming out with the inputs and weights. And now he's just adjusting the weights to maximize performance. I think this is something you need to get very clear on before you go on with the whole deep learning thing, because if you don't understand this, then you're not sure how deep learning is different from machine learning. So then, machine learning is, it's got the definition in the book, and then he's bringing on the neural networks, and then of course the stochastic gradient. And this is just definitions, so I just quickly just type in the definitions or copy and paste, just so I would keep refreshing what it is. And as I keep doing this, of course my review goes faster and faster, and then hopefully I don't have to keep going back to the video and say, what did you say again? And that's what you want to avoid, right? You don't want to get to like lesson 6 and then say, I know you said it in lesson video 2, or was it video 3? You don't want to start doing that. So do yourself a favor, just make these little notes. And then, you can always add to these notes. They're not like written in stone. It's like, oh, I forgot this. Let me put this in there, right? So there's kind of this fluidity, I think, with these review notes. And then he goes on, what is a function, what are weights, what are predictions, and what's a loss. And then deep learning is not magic. It needs data. It needs data that can be used to train it, and then make recommendations, but it's just making predictions. But you also need that data to have labels. So you kind of have to know the underlying data that you're kind of working with. And then, of course, if you've seen Rachel's less than 5 on ethics, and or you've seen her ethics course, you know that all data is biased. So that even if you're looking at, transactional data or historical data, that data that you're pulling has got some bias to it. So just be careful on your data that you think is clean, because it's probably not. And then how the model will interact, and this is something he was talking about, predictive polling or policing example, that it was, finding targeted areas, especially in Black or African-American neighborhoods, and it creates a positive feedback loop. So you keep sending more and more police in those areas. And he just mentioned a small thing on that. He'll talk more about it, at least in the book is chapter 3, and it's in the video lesson 5. I haven't done lesson I haven't completed all those lessons, but I'm just kind of telling you where it is and everything like that within the book. And then he begins Jupyter Notebook, running your first notebook, and does this line by line explanation. And then he's got this small little blurb. It says Fast.ai 2 in the video, but then by the time you get it, either in the book or in the notebooks, it'll be Fast.ai. Just letting you know that's how they were doing it in their previous, as they were kind of pre-launching that. They were saying Fast.ai 2. So there was a little, I came when they were just going through Fast.ai to Fast.ai 2, and there was a lot of confusion between the different libraries. Like, when did you use Fast.ai 2? When did you use? So I'm glad they kind of like cleaned it all up, and now it's just Fast.ai. And then he explains all the functions in there, the untar data, the doc function, and then there's a vision tutorial. I don't know if you guys know, if you go doc and then you find that vision tutorial, and he says to go through some of those tutorials. I haven't gone through them, but I would think it would be helpful if you went through a little bit of those tutorials.
Where are those tutorials?
When you go to, well, let me see. I think I can go here. And of course, now that I want to look for it, now I can't find it. Is it docs? Does anyone know? Docs.fast.ai?
Yep, it's docs.fast.ai. There's a,
Yeah.
Yep.
So these tutorials, right? So beginning and then training.
Training, and then I think there's one for vision.
So if you go to this vision, that's what he was talking about. So if you type doc and then the parens, it like pulls these, and then you can do these like little tutorials.
There's a simple one. I think click on the getting started.
Overview.
Yeah, and then tutorials, and then there's a vision one, the simple quick start, I think. I'm not sure. Trying to remember. Beginners, yeah. Beginners. Quick start. It showed up.
Right here?
Yep, the beginners one. Yeah, that one, the vision tutorial. There you go.
Yeah. So I haven't actually done this one. That's why I have a difficult time finding it. But I think if you go to docs and then you put a paren around this is where it takes you to. And then it starts to like give you ideas and the documentation for that. So highly recommend you go through some of these. I know they're a little long. You see how long it is. But I think it's helping you to kind of go through and solidify in your head what's going on. So highly recommend you do the docs here. So good question on that. Anyone else? So do the vision tutorial. That was the one I asterisked, and that's the one he said in the video course. I don't know if you remember, but that was the one he said that. So that's why I have a little star to it that reminds me, go ahead and do that. And then Fast.ai has predefined data sets, and they're using this one for the image one. And then for cat, every file name has an uppercase first letter, and that's how they pull the label. Then they're using the Resnet 34 architecture. And then he's talking about the overfitting, and then how you get the validation set. And if you forget the validation, I haven't actually tried this. Has anyone actually tried not put the valid percent in their notebook? No. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I did. By default, if you don't put a valid percentage, by default it puts in a 0.2%. So it does create it for you. So whether you like it or not, there's always a validation set, even if you don't put anything in. It's only when you deliberately say valid percent equals 0, that's when you don't have a valid percent.
Actually, I think the way you don't have, there's like a function called split none or something, or at least there was in the previous Fast.ai. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, or if you
You normally would
do
want to always have one.
valid %0, or I'm not sure what's the right way to not have a validation set if you really don't want one.
I know for a fact that, yeah, you can set it to valid %0. But it does come with a warning, though. It will come out with a warning, something like generator set empty something, but it'll still run.
Oh, would be interesting to test out if you can
Yeah,
set it to 0.
yeah. Definitely test it out if you want to play around with not having a validation set. But
Yeah.
I think the point was you should always have a validation set.
Yeah. Just my question was, what if you didn't put it, or what like you said, what if you just set it to 0 or something? So that was my question in there, but I didn't try it. So anyways, of course, you use your validation set to see if you have a good model and to see what that error rate. And then it's not just for image classification, and it's pulling these different data sets. It does say at the very end, get your GPU server, whether it's Google Colab or Paperspace Gradient. It says, don't forget to shut it down, but in Paperspace, it shuts down for you. It says, run the notebook, make sure you get comfortable, and then use the documentation. And that goes back to what I was saying, try to go through some of that documentation. And then he says, the most important thing I think that we can take away is it's important to run experiments, but run code. So I would go through your notebook and then just start tweaking away, and then just see, unless in the next video, you start to make your own data set and stuff like that. So if you've gone that far, you can start playing with trying to make your own, image classifier from that. But with this, you can start tweaking different things, even just from lesson 1. And then, of course, he recommends read the chapter 1 of the book and do the questionnaire. And the only thing I had a little bit of comment on that was it sounded like, well, at first when I went through it, I said, oh, so chapter 1 is lesson 1. So chapter 2 must be video 2. And that's not the case, right? Because when you see in the book, chapter 3, it's talking about ethics. Video 3 is not talking about ethics. So in the videos, just make sure you understand that at least video 1 and chapter 1 is right on sync. But as you keep going through the course, you'll quickly find out that there's some pieces that will be split among. So I don't know if you can do all the questionnaires. You certainly can do the questionnaires you covered in the video, but you certainly couldn't do all the questionnaires. So the book doesn't follow the video and vice versa. That would be my only comment there. Anyone else there? So that's sort of like how I would like the presentation done, just what your own take of the video was. Maybe you want to highlight something, you tried some code or something and you wanted to do more than just a question and answer type thing, right? Or a helpful suggestion, something that you thought was, interesting and you want to share it. So let me go back to this guy.
Oh, there's one more technical thing, if you do need to find, like you mentioned, wanting to find something in the video. So if you do need that, you can search the transcript. So like if you do have to find something particular, where did he mention something or other? If you go to the course.fast.ai and you click on the lessons there.
Yeah. So the way I do it is I, watch it once, and then when I'm going through it, what I'll do is I'll mark in my book where that video is at. I'll say 1545. But then since the videos are sort of half the chapters, I have to put like a, video 3 or something, or video 4 or something like that, because you'll find that you'll start going through that and then you'll say, where was that again? Where does he mention this? And then sometimes he's jumping back and forth in the book, and it makes it a little difficult sometimes where it is. So I just make where I'm finding that information. Pretty much he stays with the book, but you'll quickly find out when you get to lesson 2 and 3, the books are like skips around a little bit.
The transcripts are searchable, right? I mean, the Fast.ai video viewer, that little interface that they wrote from scratch, is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are the transcripts available?
They are on. When you click closed caption, they show up. They're right there.
Okay. Because I know in the previous versions, Nakamura did, the last version, Nakamura did some outstanding transcripts. I spent a few months actually transcribing the two versions back, and because that's how I learned quite a bit. But
I did Jerry's, I did the last one, lesson 2, all of it. It took me like 3 weeks. I literally transcribed it, and you can upload your transcriptions to their repo.
Yeah.
And but now it's done automatically using machine learning, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. It does a really great job too.
So I'd like to kind of open this up a little bit and kind of, I'll tell you my little take on it, and then you guys can start adding in what you would do. So in one of the videos, they're talking about what kind of recommendations you would have given your future self if it was last week. What would you have done differently? What could you have done so that it's not, that hard or make it difficult for yourself? So the first one I said is join something like this. Have a study group, talk to people, and help you to, yes, we're all that technical field, and we have a lot of younger students coming in, and they're just gung-ho and we can just do it ourselves. The problem though is when you don't express it and it doesn't solidify in your head, and you might be working on a deep learning project or you may not. But if you don't have that kind of study group, then I think you just become something like, look like this. You're just one of those internet trolls, and you just read and consume information. You're not actually learning. You're just kind of like just there, just taking more and more information, and then 2 months later, 3 months later, nothing, right? Now, if you're learning and you're just getting all this, and you're just becoming the next Sylvan, right? You're just going to become this next deep learning guru, then great. But I have a day job and I have life, and there's other distractions and other priorities. So I think joining the study group kind of has that accountability and kind of helps. I know for myself that just preparing for this, I would not have done all this work. Just, if I was just studying myself, I would have just slacked off, and I probably wouldn't have finished all the videos kind of in this kind of a 1 week time frame type of thing if I didn't have the study group. The second thing I would do is the Slack and Discord channels. Now, it looks something like that, right? Deep learning, and you get so confused of where do I go and what do I do? So I think the Slack channel for the TWIML group, they do a good job. You can share. I've seen some of the other study groups, and they're sharing different ideas, and it's going back around. But I don't know if you know about the Discord group for Fast.ai. Let me show you that. So this is the Fast.ai Discord group, and if I can bring it up. Now, what I wanted to show you guys, and forgive me if you already know this and you already belong to the group, the Slack channel, the Discord channel. But what I find is Jeremy posts a lot in everywhere, in all the channels. He posts a lot. So one thing that's interesting is that he's much more visible on this than the forums to me. And he's posting at least every day. And he's having like little chat sessions, or what do you call them? I'm not sure if anyone knows.
He does the
developer.
He does live coding every day.
The live coding one. So you're more than welcome to join that one in the Fast.ai Dev and do some of these. But what I find interesting about this is that you can see like Jeremy saying he's going to do something like this, and then as you troll down and see what else, there's little tidbits here and there. And to me, as a beginner as I am, they're way over my head a lot of times. But just kind of reading through them and clicking on their links, and when I ask questions, they're pretty responsive. So if let's see if I can do my little.
Where did you find the link to the Discord channel?
I was looking for it
searched
today,
for it.
and I don't know how I found it. And then I just said, oh, this must be a channel. And I clicked on it, and then the next thing I knew, I got this. And I said, oh, well, this is new. I didn't have this when I first took it. So I asked this question.
Yeah.
Before
Maybe
it says,
look. Sorry. I just wanted to add, go look in the forums. There's a link in the forums to the Discord channel. So just click on that and
yeah,
you'll
or if you're nice, maybe I just send you the invite.
Yeah.
So anyways, I posted this, right? It says, does anyone know when the next set of video lessons will be out for version 4? Or should we continue with the older ones if we finish 1 through 8? Because my intention is when we finish this study group in November, what do we do, right? So I'm hoping that the next set of lectures come out and they do have it, but you'll see that this one comes up and he says, yeah, I'm wondering about the same thing. But then you see Zach Miller says, and you see the dates, they're really fast. So to me, I think they're much better at asking quick questions. Now, of course, if you have a full-blown, you're trying to figure out something that's better on the forum. So there's do you use Discord or do you use the forum? So there's a little balance there, but I think once you start reading through this, you'll see where the balance can be. So if you're having a full-blown problem, that should be on the forums. But if you're having a quick question like this, their response time is much faster on this thing than on the forums to me. And I've asked questions in both areas, but I think in here they're responding to me a little bit faster. So I would recommend the Discord channel if you just have a quick question. And you can see who keeps posting and who keeps the experts in the group. And you'll quickly see these experts all around. They do have different study groups. Like there's this one that's on Sundays. It's just a reading one. And there's a lot of these people there that are kind of reading the book week by week. So recommend you do that and don't get confused in all this. So use your Slack and Discord channels to your advantage. That would be my recommendation. I didn't know about the Discord channel until probably last week or something when I was searching around the forums. So again, use the forums as best you can. I know it's a little clunky sometimes because you have to search and look around and see who's commenting and everything, but they do have some good information there. And let me go here. And the last one is the video lectures not matching the book. So once you finish lesson 1, you'll figure, oh, I'll just watch video 2 and then that should match with chapter 2. But that doesn't happen, right? So he moves from like chapter 2 to chapter 4. He kind of skips chapter 3, which is on the ethics, and the ethics comes in, I think, in lesson 5. And I just kind of skipped through and then just see which lessons were talking about what. And that's what it seemed like. So there's a lot more ethical pieces in the new version that I seem to be finding. So if you want some more information, you can go check out, I think, Rachel's course on ethics. And I'll tell you, honest truth, I didn't really care about ethics until they mentioned it in the book. And surprising, I kind of sat down and kind of was glued on that chapter till I finished. And I thought, oh, this is actually pretty neat. I didn't know all that bias. I'm just a data guy, right? So you just give me the data, tell me what you want and I'll get it for you, right? So I don't really question what's it going to be used for and where did you get this data and that kind of thing. So you don't want to look at something like that, right? You don't want to get it so confusing that it starts to become this chaotic mess. And then you just look at this thing and you're like, what do the videos talk about this book? So just keep in mind that the book is, slightly different than the videos, and hopefully we can cover just the lesson, just the video lesson. So just don't say, oh, chapter 1 is chapter 1 in the book, and that's all I'm going to do, and chapter 2 in the book. One thing I would recommend, though, is, especially if you're on the go a lot, what's nice is you can pull up the GitHub on your phone. And like somebody mentioned about Google Colab, if you go to the Google Colab and click on those links, you'll actually be able to run Google Colab on your mobile phone and then practice with some of the, so you basically have a little electronic notebook just when you're, shopping or standing in line or something. You can actually review something on your mobile device. And to me, that's really cool because everywhere you go, you'll have some piece of that related information that you can use. But remember, the book isn't tied to the video, chapter by chapter. Does anyone have any of their tips they would like to share? Especially those who went through it first.
It's a really small thing.
Okay.
Really small thing, but for Google Cloud Compute, just for making sure that you have the GPU server shut down, there's an app for your phone where you can control all of that. So if you walk away from your computer and realize that you've completely forgotten to shut down the server, you can do it from your phone.
Yeah, my Google GCP bill does reflect a few nights when I would forget. $5 more bucks a month.
Can you put the link to that app in the chat, please?
Yeah, I'll
on
look
that,
for it.
On that, I'm also using GCP Compute, and so I've written a couple of scripts to create the instance, to start and stop it, to copy files to it, and most recently to enable and disable the expensive GPU, so that I can do things like, I had a script that needed to run for several hours to download a data set. And obviously I don't want an expensive GPU while that's happening. So shut down, disable GPU, start, connect, download data set, disconnect, enable GPU, start, etc. That kind of thing. So I found that quite helpful, but I want that app.
Anyone else? Thank you for that helpful tip there.
I thought that was a cool example that he gave of the how that guy created a data set for French to English translation by scraping the Canadian websites.
Yeah.
That was kind of a neat example.
One suggestion, I guess, from my experience is that it really helps if you start with a small project or a series of small projects. And it kind of motivates you to do something every day with it. If it's like just following the videos, it kind of gets boring after a while. But if you're doing something that you're interested in and like building a data set, and then probably when you get to the next videos, play around with it, build something, it usually keeps your interest longer. So that I guess that's my tip, is not just to stick to the book or the videos.
I agree 100% there, Butch. I guess the next lesson is the black bear, where he does a black bear teddy bear classifier. I decided to go try to pull down my own images using his same technique by putting in a Google search and saving it. It took me hours to work through all the issues that come up, but I had a football versus baseball classifier. But it took a lot of work. I mean, once you start to veer away from the examples just a little bit, you really have to know what's going on. And if you veer too far, it will just get too hard. You'll never figure it out.
Yeah, that's why I recommend something small. My problem was the last time I took a task too big, and it was just too big for me. Now I can probably tackle it now that I've gone through it. But yeah, start small, build simple stuff, but just build something you're interested in. I think is the most important thing.
And I think using the system as it is, making one small change, like that's what I did. I said, okay, he got bears, black bears and teddy bears. what can I think of that I can search for that will be two distinct things, but are kind of close? And that's where I stopped. I just took a small change, and that even was hard, of course. If you try to do too much, you'll realize that the concepts are hard. They get hard quick. So stay with the simple stuff that's in the context of the course, and then just make a small change just to get your feelings, your footing, your skill sets up at first.
That was my experience as well. I tried to download some food pictures to distinguish certain items. And the biggest part was cleaning those images.
Yes.
And creating the data set. So I was wondering, has anybody tried to convert your notebook into app, as Jeremy mentioned, with the binder?
Yeah, I think you'll do that in the next video. So we can probably discuss that next week. Yeah.
Next video.
Oh, sweet. They do a binder thing? That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of slow though.
Right. The binder.
Just a warning.
Yeah. The binder founder was on a TWIML AI interview about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, maybe 6 months. Fascinating tool. Binder is fascinating. Then you'll get interested in GitHub Actions and all that business. Now that gets complicated fast. So, but Binder is great. That'll be fun. So how do you find enough time to do, like I have a full-time job, but all my kids are gone. I'm an empty nester and I really have a lot of time on my hands, but I still struggle to get all the work done in 1 week.
I've been going at it for a couple of years and I'm up to lesson 4.
Oh, I love that. Because I'll be quite honest with you, I've actually done Andrew Ng's Deep Learning.ai. I've been through 4, I got like 4 specializations, and it's a little bit different in his work because you're watching him do a lot of the analysis and the theory, and then you do a little bit of coding. And this is like code. So it's a little bit different, and you do want to do it. You do want to get your hands on it, or you'll never learn it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a time thing.
I think as Andy said here, it's really joining a group like this so that you make time and you do it regularly and you meet up. I also did Andrew Ng's first one, but I did it with somebody else, and so we just made sure that we fit it into our week and that we had time for homework and egg each other on. So I'm hoping that my 4 years my 2 years by myself translates into 8 weeks with you people.
Yeah, me too. That's good.
The other tip I have is once you've done probably the 4th or 5th lecture, once you get to that and you're looking for a project, one thing that might help is working with someone collaboratively in a group, work on something rather than just doing it solo. Because it's pretty hard working on stuff just solo. It's fine for like small projects that you can finish over a weekend, but if you're building something bigger, where it's those areas where you learn more, not just the AI stuff, but sometimes you learn something else. It's more fun to work with someone else, and it really helps keep your motivation up if you're working with someone else rather than just doing everything solo. That's what I've learned. I used to do everything solo, and it's hard to keep the interest.
Motivation, yeah. Good advice.
Yeah, I knew if I didn't do something like this, it would be the same as I did in version 2. And I only got to, I think, to maybe lesson 4, possibly 5. But I was doing the lessons with Thomas Mueller's walkthrough. And I was doing both of those at the same time. And they're quite complex and a little long with them. And when you do the image classifier, it got this kind of Firefox plugin you have to use. And that was so complicated that I was, how am I going to do this? I don't know how I got it to work, but it just started downloading the images. And I said, I don't even know how I did this. And now I can't ask anybody and trying to explain it to them. I think if I have to explain it to them, I'd be blank. if I had to do it all over, I said, I don't know. I just pushed this and loaded it up, and that was it. All of a sudden, I got these downloads from Google Images, and that's how I did it. And that's not very good to continue that way, right?
Guys, this is Ulant. Great conversation. I have a setup question. I was not able to spend time earlier, so started about 6 hours ago. I've not even in that time spent a lot of focused time on it. So I had problems setting up quotas in GCP. And I decided that AWS may be easy. Somebody in the forum had AWS, and apparently, as I selected the menu, there's a setup page somebody has put in using AWS SageMaker. I was not successful because it asked for an M2 or like M4 large instance. I've put in a request to support. So my question, is anybody planning to use AWS SageMaker for this course?
No takers.
I
What is the? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to mention, it used to be that there was somebody from SageMaker on the forums who was actively helping out. I don't know if he's still active, but yeah, he used to be a lot more helpful in help. If you have a question, he was pretty responsive back then. I don't know if he still is. So, but I haven't used SageMaker myself, so I don't know anything about it. That's all.
Okay, I have used it before, so I have some experience, not a lot. I guess I'll give it a try if I'm not successful, because this is more GCP or otherwise centric set of people group us. Then I'll switch to GCP. Thank you.
Yeah. But I would recommend.
I'll jump in. I'm not GCP centric. But I will run all of it in Azure, and I use just one of the Azure virtual machines that's built for it. It's already kind of set up and configured to run Fast.ai, so it tends to be pretty quick and easy. But you're paying for basically a VM in the cloud with a GPU, unlike Paperspace for your fractional purchases and things like that.
Yeah.
But I also purchased the one where they can kick me off at any time. So sometimes I get booted, but it saves me, I think, 85% off the overall costs. So I'm paying 17 cents a minute instead of 90 or something like that. Whatever the discount works out to be.
Yeah. But
I have a Paperspace question. I don't know who just spoke. So.
But I don't know about Paperspace, so I'll have
Oh,
to.
you don't? Okay.
yeah, I did play around with it for a quick bit. Yeah, but so if you have a question, just go ahead. Maybe I can, maybe I can't.
So in Paperspace, looks like they have different VMs. They call the notebook VM, right? If I create a Jupyter notebook in one VM space, and if I spin up another one, and if I want to access that, do I need to store it under /storage or something? Or
I don't know if you can access both of them. I'm to tell you the truth. What we usually do is just spin up one and run the one notebook after the other, because you have all the data sets there, right? And I do know that they copy off all the data sets you need for Fast.ai, but I don't know if you can transfer, if you can have a shared volume between two VMs, or if they'll allow you to do that. I don't know if you can.
Okay, so I started with the free account, and that's a different VM, and I upgraded, and it looks like I had to create a new VM to get the new storage quota for the upgrade. So I started a new one. Now my notebooks, the one I just created on my own, is in the old one. And I'm trying to see, okay, do I just copy paste, or is there a way?
Yeah, I think you can. In Jupyter, there's a way to download your notebooks, right? So you can just copy and upload that if it's just a notebook.
To my local local machine.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah, and so other question, if anybody's familiar with Paperspace, is it integrated with GitHub? Can I push my notebook after I'm done to my GitHub? I guess I'm
Yes, you
getting
can.
way too much into the weeds of papers.
No, I think you can. If you have, I'm pretty sure there's it's a VM. So there's an option in Jupyter where you can open up a terminal. So if it doesn't have Git, you can always install Git, and then you can like push your, basically you can push to a Git repo. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't tried it, but I definitely think you should be able to.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Just a follow-up question on the Paperspace. When you signed up for the account, did you find that you were able to get more of the free VMs with GPUs?
Yeah, I was able to get free VM. I was able to create and download the data set, the images that I did web script, and I was able to upload it from my laptop into that, into the storage directory, and I was able to build with it. And I wanted a more permanent space, so I thought I'll upgrade to a paid version.
Yeah, when I got my Paperspace account, I was using the free account, but it would take me maybe an hour or 2 hours to get to access the free one. And then once I upgraded, it seemed like I had access to the free ones all the time. And I was like, oh, well, they don't tell you this. I should have just upgraded it anyways, because you're waiting for, says no more VMs available, and you keep trying every 15, 20 minutes, and then eventually you get it.
Yeah.
By then I just switched to Google Colab and ran my stuff just to ask a, question or two.
The way back in, I think, March, there was a lot less demand, but now I can't get it. Usually around March earlier in the year, I used to be able to get it in 1 to 2, 3 tries, maybe. 3 tries, I'll get some of a free VM. But now it just takes too long. So if you're stuck on, if you don't want to upgrade to the paid version, you're basically, it takes a while. It's probably 1 in 5 chance, I don't know, to get a free VM now on Paperspace. I think the demand went up. So it's much harder to get a free VM instance now.
Yeah. Any other questions do we have? It says questionnaire review, but I'd rather have this type of Q&A discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I have a question about Slack. It's been a while since I've been on Slack, so can somebody give me pointers on how to get access to our group on that?
Oh, did you not get to how did you get here then?
Oh, that's a good question. So through the forums, I was looking over, I don't think I've received anything on my inbox through the forums.
Okay, so, well, you just go to I guess, Google, right? And then you do TWIML Community, right?
You have to have a Slack account to start, right?
Yeah, and then you find a group, right? We're here. And then it just says resources for the group. And then, by joining TWIML, you'll be able to join the Slack channel, and then you'll
I haven't joined TWIML yet. Okay, so that's probably...
So you'll see this thread here, and this is where everyone's chiming in. And that's how I figured out the
But
Zoom.
you need to get invited to the channel, channel, right? The Slack channel, the Slack group.
Yeah, but don't you just join and then they give you the thing and then?
No, actually I had to email and request. Yes. Oh, maybe, okay.
There's a form. I think you fill out a form, right? You fill out a form, and then I think that's you're into the community.
And the form is for Slack, not for TWIML.
No, it's actually a TWIML thing, I believe. Here, let me.
Yeah, it's
That's a-
for
That's a good question, actually.
TWIML group.
So we'll have to research that for you, Ray. Did you pull the information off the forums? Is that
Off the
what-
forums, yeah. And
forums
you,
AI?
right.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so if you just join TWIML, I think you can join this, you just join this channel under the TWIML community, and then you'll get
Yes.
to this group here,
TWIML Community. That's it. You got it.
this one right here, right? Maybe I can just invite you, Ray.
No, you go to that link, and then it says join, and you click join, and you have to give it your email, I think. Yeah.
This one?
Cool, thanks.
Yes.
Let me try that.
There you go. It's funny. It's been a while since I did that.
There was a person that was asking about Amazon SageMaker.
Yeah, it was me.
I think maybe you want to check out this group and maybe ask your question over there. I don't know.
Okay.
I just saw Amazon SageMaker, but yeah.
Sure, that's a good idea. Actually, I was thinking because that's production oriented, maybe I can join that some point in time. But
Yeah, but you could at least go to the Slack channel and ask your question.
oh, that's a beautiful idea. Thank you. I will do that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, use Slack a lot. You know, a lot easier to just ask questions, just like the Discord group.
So what is Discord? Is that just a Slack type
yeah, it's
client?
the same similar type of thing. You know, it's just like, you know,
More,
the only thing in
more
here.
like a voice chat sort of gaming server.
Yeah, it's like a gaming type thing, but you can't reply. So like, let's say I want to reply to Zach's thing. I can't reply here. So you just have to continually make threads, and you know, it just goes long and long. Whereas Slack, you can make replies and have little side conversations, but this is just.
It's IRC in the old language.
Got it. Okay.
With voice chat.
With voice. Okay.
I did run into one issue with the intro notebook. I don't know if anybody else ran into it. Jeremy talks about this issue in the video, but his solution doesn't fix the problem for me. And it has to do with the GraphViz package. And I get the bottom of my error looks like the error he had, but I'm getting a failed to execute .-tsvg GraphViz executables are not on your system's path. I'm on Mac, and so I would know how to fix this on Windows because I would just go put it in my path. Does anybody know how to fix that on a Mac?
Did it tell you where the path was?
No.
Or it just says it's not on your path? Sorry, I missed the first bit. Which one's not on your path? GraphViz?
It's dot, comma, dash TSVG. And I think dot is the underlying language that GraphViz operates in, if I'm correct. My 2-year-old woke up from nap when I was trying to solve this problem, so I kind of didn't do a full thorough Google search here, but I just thought if somebody else had run into it and solved it, you'd be able to give me a tip.
Did you install the GraphViz via pip?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because normally that would put it in the path.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's something to do with the virtual environment I'm using, and it put it, you know, in there or something. I mean, there's about 10 or so questions I found pretty quickly on Stack Overflow that seems to solve it for Windows and Linux, but the one recommendation I was kind of looking at when my son woke up was through Mac ports, and you have to install a separate library to your operating system outside of Python for it to create that part of it. I just haven't done it yet.
Okay.
I can certainly help you with that. The new the new language for Mac ports is called Homebrew.
Okay.
You might find that package on Homebrew as well. It's a bit more friendly than Mac ports and a bit more up to date. But if you get stuck, just grab me on, well, Discord, I guess.
Oh,
Okay, great. Thanks.
or Slack.
Any other questions there? None?
let me ask about that. What is it that you're doing? Where are you running where's your Jupyter server in that scenario?
I was just running it on my computer because
Okay.
I hadn't set up a GPU server yet. And it's just, it's just those graphs that are the drawings of how models are laid out. So it wasn't critical to the.
Got it.
Like I have the book, so somewhere in there. So I have all the documentation. I have the pictures. It was just, it's one of those things where something doesn't work in the notebook, and then you spend an hour trying to mess with it.
That's why I was asking. I didn't know what your environment was. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just running on Jupyter Notebook off my machine
locally.
Yeah.
Anyone else? So we're supposed to go through the questions and then the Q&A. Did anyone have issues with the questionnaire on the back of the sort of book there? So everyone knows what I'm talking about. In the back of all the lesson, or in the chapters, there's these questionnaires, and they're supposed to be kind of review for you. And then Jeremy says, "Oh, we spent a lot of time doing these questionnaires, so it's helpful if you kind of lay these out and make sure you understand all of them."
I think his point is that you should be able to answer the questions before, at least to some degree, before moving on.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a important note, I guess, as far as if you don't feel competent on each of those topics, review.
Yeah.
Another suggestion might be to just read the questions beforehand before going into the videos, just so that you have something to watch out for in the videos and makes you more active. I do that too when reading the book, is read the questionnaires first and then try to when I'm reading the book, that answers that question. I kind of go back and forth between the questionnaire and reading the book. It just helps me, I guess, keep an active attitude towards reading or watching the videos, because you're looking for answers rather than just listening passively. And that's my tip.
Yeah, I think question 4 was pretty challenging. I'm not good at memorization tasks, and the answer is pretty detailed as far as what these 8 steps of the parallel distributed processing is.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things. It's after a while, I memorized kind of those things more or less. There's the processing units, the output function, the blah blah blah. After a while, it gets it's a good thing to just memorize kind of stuff sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. So what's question 8? Each cell of the structure.
Question 4.
It was 4. Yeah, 4.
Based on the book of the same name, what are the requirements for parallel distributed processing?
Andy, go.
Yeah, I would have to say don't know, but I have the book.
Input and weights and evaluation.
Activation rule, propagation rule.
Activation.
What else?
Update. Evaluate. Update.
Update rule, yeah. And then I think the final one is the environment in which the whole thing runs.
Right.
But I think it's better to really understand number 11, where it says, what did Samuel mean by weight assignment? And what do you mean by weights and stuff like that. I think it's better because if you don't know what that is, then all your stuff for kind of doing the learning by, you know, reviewing the data doesn't make sense to you, right? You don't know how it's
Right.
processing the deep learning. So I think this is a more deeper question than number 4. 4 is more like the foundational theoretical part. But I think if you don't understand this part, you really need to like go through it slowly and make sure you understand this. Because this is deep learning. This is,
Well, yeah. I mean,
someone
actually,
said, what does deep learning mean by all these weights? How can it learn by, you know, not knowing before you have something to explain it?
that's more theoretical than you think, actually, right? I mean, that's the actual theory that it's all built upon, the derivative function and
Yeah.
back propagation. That stuff that you would get from Andrew Ng if you did that, but he's glossing over all that. And you have to just give it on faith that every layer has weights that you apply to every coefficient. And if you can tweak those weights based on the training cycle, you will come out with a thing that actually does precisely what you want it to do. It's like AX plus B. It's the A of AX plus B.
Yeah.
That's all he means, right? They're weights. They're parameters.
And I think it's pretty deliberate that Jeremy glosses over a lot of things.
Yes, yes. Oh yeah,
So,
you can get dragged in. I
Yeah,
spent many,
so-
many weeks, but it's fascinating if you're interested in that stuff. Fascinating to watch Andrew Ng do it on the board, and then he translates exactly what he did on the whiteboard into Python. And then you appreciate vectorization immediately. But that's a different path. This is a hands-on path, and they're both excellent in their own ways. But you would get dragged into the weeds pretty quick if you. But I think we've probably addressed the essence of that question. And move on. Yeah. So what's normally weights? Oh, parameters, right? Is that what I mean? The next question. What term do we normally
I think so.
use? Okay. Yeah. All right.
I was in the reading group on last Sunday, not this past Sunday, but the last Sunday, and they were going over the same questions, and they went over this question: what is the head of a model? And it seems odd that it would be head rather than tail, but everyone they kind of went through this a little bit deeper, but the person who was running it went through a pretty lengthy explanation.
That's a new term to me, actually. What is it?
So what is the head of the model? Anyone want to take that?
Yeah, if nobody else wants to take the answer. The head of the model is like the part where it's task specific. Like, you know how, I don't know if it was in lecture 1 that actually what we're doing is we're using what we call transfer learning.
Okay.
So we take a model that was trained on something else, like it was the model was initially built to classify 1,000 categories of this big data set called ImageNet.
Right.
So now that we're using it for classifying cats and dogs, what Fast.ai does is it takes part of that image, the head, which is like the one that picks what category, 1,000 categories, and takes that out and replaces it with something that's task specific, something that you use for guessing whether it's a cat or a dog. And that's called the head part.
Interesting. That would be the tail.
Yeah.
The way we would the way we think, or the way I think about it, is the bottom is where the image comes in. Like you start with the image, like a given sample. If you think of the function, if you think of it as a function, you go from the bottom, you take the image, and then it goes up, and then at the end, you come out with a guess whether it's a cat or a dog.
Right.
So that's the head part.
Got
And
it.
we take that, Fast.ai basically replaces the head part of something that's been built for something else with initially something random, basically, but you train it to,
Right.
and then it becomes good at picking whether it's a cat or a dog. So
Excellent.
that's the head.
Got it. Yeah, I've never heard of it referred to as the head. That's just where you discriminate between what it is you're looking for.
Yep.
You
It's
apply
the task specific part.
the probabilities to whatever size vector you need.
Yep.
Got it.
So are you saying that just as in, so like transfer learning, you have, let's say, 4 layers and the input layer and the output layer, so 6 in total.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so if you take out the first layer, the input, and the last layer is the head layer. That's what you're saying. Because
No,
entire structure is what you would transfer from a learned model to a new set, right?
actually, in this particular case, we don't change the bottom part. The bottom part, what we use is we're using something called a Resnet model. That's what you type in the CNN learner thing.
Okay.
Resnets can take multiple sized images. So it doesn't matter what image size you have, it'll work the same way. But the head part, the one that guesses whether it's a cat or dog, is something specific. So if you like build your own, train your own model, use a different data set, you take the same, what do you call that, pre-trained model that's used to, like, that was used to used on 1,000 categories. You basically take the part that's making the prediction which category, which 1,000 categories it belongs to, with something like something that guesses baseball versus, what was that, basketball or something?
Football.
Or baseball?
Actually.
Or football, yeah. So that's the task specific part. That's the one that you specific to your task. So that's the part that we kind of replace. But the bottom part kind of stays the same.
Well, you're not using it to train. You're not actually doing the training. You're doing the inference. So I think that's what is that. Oh,
you do the training because you start out with a random set of weights, and then you do the training so that it becomes good at picking. Picking that part. The head part is the one that you train. Actually, in the end, you do actually train the whole thing as well. So, but you start out with training the head part because that's specific to your task.
I thought I remembered from the last Fast AI course that, like you were saying, the beginning of the model, if we want to think about where the images come in, where that layer doesn't get changed. But I thought that Fast AI randomly selected the weights for that first layer to start training for your new image set. Has that changed?
I don't know if that was ever the case, because I remember this is kind of like an advanced thing. So I don't want to get into it because it's like going too far ahead. But the idea is the model is built in such a way that you don't have to change the bottom part. So whether you're using 224 or you're using something smaller like 28 by 28, that part, the bottom part of the model, the one where it reads the image, is actually you don't need to change the size. You can, of course. I mean, there's different ways of building models, but the way we currently do it in Fast AI is we don't change the bottom part. So it can take in any size of images. But the part where you're picking what it's going to classify is the head part, and that's the one that we change. So what I'm saying is we don't as far as I know, and I've looked at the source code, we don't change the bottom part. It's only the head part that we change. So I hope that kind of
That's
answers
fascinating. Yeah, that's excellent. That's cool. You said that it learns, but does it already have some kind of weights? How does it?
Yes.
I mean, isn't the Resnet 34 model has to know you're trying to benefit from pre-trained from the training it's done. So
That's
it
why
it
I
understands
think
all
it's
the
already in the
activation.
lecture. Jeremy kind of mentioned it already, that the earlier layers like can kind of know or learn how to distinguish simple stuff like the lines, edges, and stuff.
All the activation layers and all the hidden.
The early layers learn that, and they activate on the simple stuff like simple edges and lines and stuff.
And
the layers down deeper, the deeper layers, the one going up to the head, are like they activate on more complicated combinations of like it figures out like eyes or noses or faces,
ears, and
so that kind of stuff that's done on the deeper layers.
Okay, so part of it's cooked in.
So the earlier part, the transfer learning is because the model that was trained on 1,000 categories with a big database, that's something that you can reuse. The part that you want to train to something specific like football and spaceball that's the head part. That's the upper part. So the way you would visualize it is like the head part is the one that's specific, and it combines all these simple stuff, the edges and all this
primitives or some kind
primitives, But the thing is, you might start out just training the head, but you do later on train the whole thing so that it's optimized towards spaceball versus football or something like that.
That's fascinating stuff. You're right. I mean, I've done it. I've literally typed it in, but I didn't really think about how it was reusing Resnet 34.
Yeah. So you do train the model at the end.
I mean, let me just say, like, I looked at that a little bit deeper at one point, and just like qualitatively, you're really mostly using the pre-trained model, right? Like, you know, if you use Resnet, that has, I forget, like about 20 million weights in it, you know, in the Resnet 34, like the other Resnets have even more, but that's the pre-trained part, and the part that you add, like the head is maybe 500,000 weights if you set it up like the default way. So you're really mostly using the pre-trained part. Like that's giving you most of the you know, most of your computation.
Got it.
And even if you do that part that he mentioned where you train the rest of the network eventually, you're really not training it that much. I mean, what they do is they train the head, and then they use like what they call a discriminative learning rate. So they train the head part a lot, but they train the earlier layers, like the pre-trained part just gets modified a little.
I see.
So really qualitatively what's going on is you're mostly just using the pre-trained stuff and you're modifying it a little bit.
Got it. That makes total sense. The way there's a visualizer that helps you kind of understand what primitives mean in the deep learning visual thing. It's downright fascinating. You know, once you start to just see it once, and you just see that there's like little spirals sometimes, and there's little edgy things and little color things at the hidden layers.
It's like learning a lot of useful features, I guess.
Yeah, the exact thing. Say the exact term is features. Exactly.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really fascinating. Okay, good stuff. The head is the part that's really becoming your task. What you wanted to distinguish, differentiate among this or that. How many classes you need, and what you call them. But you don't have to decide. You don't have to decide how many weights or how many layers, right? It just does that.
There's a default that Fast.ai does. I mean, this is like probably several lessons ahead. I mean, but yes, you can customize, because basically Fast.ai is what they call, as Andy mentioned earlier, it's what's called a layered architecture. So like you can change everything from the bottom to the middle to the top part. So you start out with just using the defaults a lot,
right.
But I guess once you're doing more of the research stuff or tweaking stuff, you can go down to the I want to customize the head or something like that, and you can. And so yeah, that's the fascinating thing about the Fast.ai library. Which the thing is, it's like you can do the same stuff on other libraries like PyTorch, the low-level library. It's just that Fast.ai does a lot of things under the it's kind of hidden behind the scenes, so it's like easy to learn. But once you get into the details, you can tweak it more. So that's just the thing. It's like there's more things to learn about Fast.ai all the time. Yep.
Good preview.
If those of you got lost in that question, if you have the book, it's on page 33, and there's just one little sentence, and I'll just read the sentence. It's basically a summary of what we have been discussing. It says, the head of a model is the part that is newly added to be specific to the new data set. That's all. So, went through that whole discussion for one sentence. So, and if you keep reading, that's really all it mentions about that. So again, you have to be careful, because you might just say, oh, now I know what the head is, without, like Butch was saying, thinking it through and saying, okay, what does that really mean, right?
So it's the top few layers, right?
Yeah. So do we have any other questions, or do you want to dive into something, not go too far into the other videos, but kind of stick to this one, or at least chapter 1?
Another good question, I think, is what's the difference between the metric and loss?
Question 24.
Yeah, I think that's also a pretty good question. And
yeah,
I mean, if you want to see if you understand something, what's the difference between them? And so I would ask that. Everybody, would you know the difference between a metric?
Yeah, I find in my work, I find it very important to know the difference, because the people that I'm presenting the data to do not understand loss at all. And the metrics are the things that I create that normal humans, unlike us, I guess, can look at and say, okay, the accuracy or something like that, or the error from the test data, for whatever my regression fit is. So I think that's a really good concept too.
The question I would ask is, why can't we use the metric as the loss?
Well, I think the answer is because the metric doesn't necessarily work well with stochastic gradient descent.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So
that's the question. That's the answer I was like looking for.
Okay. Yeah, I have personal feelings about translating the losses to metrics. So that's what I was touching on.
Yeah, I mean, optimization of the loss, minimizing the loss. That's the game.
Correct.
That's the game. The metric is just some indication of goodness or whatever it is you're trying to.
But actually, there's a case where your loss is also your metric.
It is one metric, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's just if I'm trying to convince a manager who knows nothing about science, it's easier for me to convert it into something that relates more to the business case, to show him how well this model fits, as you know, something he can feel and he has a feel for.
It's, for me, it's not just a what do you call this, a business case. I wish I could use the business case as my loss. If there ever was a way to like translate the business value into something that's like I could use as a loss, I would use it.
Make it a feature. Just make it a feature. Right?
No, but the reason why is, for example, there's actually a case when we're doing regression, like picking a number, a continuous number. The loss we usually use is called RMS, root mean square of the error. And that can be your metric as well.
Sure.
Because the smaller your root mean square error is also, it can also be your loss. So there are cases where the metric is also the loss.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, the only reason why we can't use the metric is because, as you said, it's not too sensitive. You want the loss to be something that's very sensitive to like changes in the weights. So that's the and you want it to be like a slight change in the weights, in the parameters, should trigger a change in the loss, so that it'll like guide the SGD will guide it towards the lowest possible loss. Whereas metrics like accuracy might not necessarily change, even though the model is improving very slightly. So the loss might be going lower, but the metrics will stay the same.
Sure.
And that's the reason. That's the only reason why we can't use the metric. So that's actually a very good question.
Yeah. And I would consider metrics to be something after the run. Loss is during the run, right? I mean, you need the loss to do the work. The metric is just an observation of something about the work.
So, I mean, another sort of a practical perspective of it is, when you're building the model, you're fine-tuning the optimization function and the loss, and trying out sigmoid and rest linear and whatever, right? But when you deploy the model into production, there it's the result-focused performance measure, and therefore you're comparing the accuracy, which is, let's say everything was 100% independent probability-wise, and your base is the ideal. So what you're getting current, right? So now, so like during training versus in production, right? So they're two very, very different. So in production, as you're saying, for somebody who doesn't understand the building of the model, you just say, hey, accuracy is this, and you present a confusion matrix, or what is right and what is wrong, and positive and negative, kind of more statistical and simple language. But when you're designing the model, you're working with all we talked about.
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. The metrics are something that you can tell a human, like RK mentioned. It's the things he gives to humans about the model, accuracy, and it assuming it's going to operate on data that's similar to the validation set.
Yeah,
which may violate the data you present the model in production may be different than what you expected, and then your accuracy is not going to be true. It might be better or worse.
Correct. Like so if you look at the learning curves, and if you take out like if you say you get data in a batch or something like that, right? And during learning, the behavior of the learning curve, TPR and FPR and true positive rate and false positive rate and all of that, right? That curve is very sensitive to the functions we are talking about, like the sigmoid function of the loss and different characteristics, right? But at the deployment, you're just looking at, you want to design it to one metric. Too many metrics practically will confuse your audience, right? I mean, if you attended a simple graph discussion in any business environment, people will have 10 different perspectives for just a line on a graph, right? It's such a sophisticated setup.
Okay.
Any other questions there? Well, just about 7:15, so we have about 15 minutes. I want to see if we had any closing remarks.
Well, I really like the section he did about people who creatively applied the image to other problems. I thought that was really cool, like to sound and
Yes.
fraud detection, and there was a few other examples.
That is fascinating.
I thought that was a really interesting thing to think about. Like if there was anything, like even for a project or something, if there's any, like anything you.
My takeaway would be try it. Just try it. See if it works.
Yeah.
You know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you know,
just
I agree. Yeah.
So our next meeting will be next week, same time, and it'll be lesson 2. It'll probably do quite a bit of chapter 2, and then hopefully we can have a little bit more presentation than just me. I'll still have my little notes and everything. I can send that out prior, but hopefully we have a little bit more presenters or somebody just, making a mention of what they learned in the lesson video too. I did like the way we did the Q&A. I think Q&A should be first versus the questionnaire, and then maybe if we have a little time, do some of the questionnaires. But I'm hoping that somebody says, oh, this is what I did in such and such, and here's my Jupyter notebook, and sort of kind of show and tell type of thing. So I'm hoping for more of that type of thing. And of course, if you found out and learned, something cool while you were doing that, you change something and learn something that way. It's pretty fundamental in the first 1 and 2 lessons, but I think as we go on, we want to showcase different GitHub repos and take a look at each other's little projects that we're working on. So I think that would be cool. So at this time, I'm going to tell Jose, which is the organizer of TWIML, that if he could close the video off here, and then the rest of the time that we have, about 10, 15 minutes, is just for us. So I wanted to kind of have a little section just for those who attended. So those who didn't attend, they wouldn't get that benefit. And I'll kind of just share my own little things that I found in the doing lesson 1 versus, it doesn't take away from the kind of study group, but I think it just makes it kind of a bonus feature, if you will. So TWIML, if you could cut this part off, and I will go on. Before I do that, do we have any feedback? How was the study group? Is this what you expected? Was it too much, too little? Flow and format were okay?
I thought this was good. I liked how the Q&A part went as well. Good discussion.
This was great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Very good. Thanks for putting together an agenda and moderating.
Is there any other things we could have done better?
I thought we went through a good range of, with your introduction of the, or at least your outline of the video, and then getting into, a little bit too much detail on that particular question. It seems like there's something for everyone, the very, very beginner, and then also the maybe even advanced. So, but without getting too deep in the advanced part. So I like that part. I like that about this session.
Yeah, I would encourage, if you wanted to have more discussion, put that on the Slack channel and keep the discussion going, right? And that kind of helps you, either if you know it really well, how to explain it and share it, which then helps others to learn it faster than just, I know what the head is.